What's up, guys? Welcome back to Roensch Capital Charts. Today we're taking a look at advanced micro devices, ticker symbol AMD, on a variety of time frames in anticipation of tomorrow's trading day, Thursday, February 1st. AMD today down about 2.5%. Actually was worse after earnings last night. Heading into this morning, we actually saw quite a pre-market pump from the pre-market lows to the open of about 3%, then continuing on from those lows to finish the day, actually about 4.6%. Higher than those after hours and pre-market lows off of those earnings report. Again, the earnings report was primarily not necessarily due to the kind of underwhelming numbers we got, basically neutral numbers, but much more so with the Q1 2024 guidance. You'll notice that on most of these tech stocks, especially as of late, guidance is going to trump nearly everything. You can have poor guidance on a wonderful earnings report, and it's not uncommon to see the tank stock. You can have amazing guidance on a really, really poor earnings report, and it's not uncommon to see the stock pump. But let's move on here from the 1-minute chart to the 5-minute chart and take a look at volume. You can see here, as we saw this move higher and then this pump off the close, fade, and then continued move higher throughout the majority of the rest of the day, you can see here that much of this volume occurs while the stock is fading to the upside, I like to call it. You can see here that, a lot of this is natural as people are waking up for the day, but volume is increasing as the stock pumps a little bit here in pre-market, and then as it flattens out and even fades downside, it's pretty common throughout the day to see the volume kind of pull back a little bit. You also have to consider that you're always going to see higher volume off the open and usually into the close, so that is something to consider. But I think it's pretty evident in the case of AMD today that the upside seems to attract more volume. And listen, that's a big deal. If you're bullish on a name, you want the upside to be on higher volume. If you're bearish, you want the downside to be on higher volume, and then whatever's against your bias to be on as little volume as possible here. But actually quite a few little opportunities if you were looking to intraday trade AMD off of some of these self-fulfilling prophecy EMAs here. You saw a lot of traders likely taking trades off of some of these levels. If you do want to come trade with us every day, scalp setup alerts, swing trade setup alerts, unusual options activity, which I human verify every single alert that goes out in that channel, by the way. The UOA is not bot driven. And then Platinum one-on-one, all of that can be found by joining the Roensch Capital Gold server, getting grandfathered in at the current rate at that pinned comment link. But let's look now at the 30-minute chart. I think the 30-minute chart is where things really start to get serious, at least as far as looking at day-to-day levels is concerned, because this is where we really start to get the most eyeballs. The 30-minute, the 4-hour, and then the daily. Look here, the 50-period moving average now. Incredibly basic indicator, total self-fulfilling prophecy. That's why I'm looking at it, right? Acting as somewhat of a resistance level here in the after hours especially, and we did see that yesterday as well off of the open. So I'm going to be paying very close attention to that 50 period moving average here on the 30-minute chart tomorrow. Obviously, if you're a bear, you want to see that rejection continue to happen. But if you're a bull, reclaiming that ASAP is going to be priority number one here, specifically on the 30-minute. But we have a couple more charts to look at here. Let's look at the 4-hour now. You can see that we're currently within a channel between the 200 period down just below 150 and the 50 period just above 170, right around 172 here. So the one that's going to be the most relevant, at least immediately, is going to, of course, be that 50 period right around 172. Obviously, again, if you are bearish, looking to see a rejection if we do see a test of that level here tomorrow. But if you're bullish, looking at the 4-hour chart here, we spent a lot of time as of late above that 50 period, just recently giving it up here on earnings. Ideally reclaiming that, getting up above 175, putting some room between the stock price and that psychological level, self-fulfilling prophecy area of that 172, at least as of tonight, right? 50 period here on the 4-hour. That would be your ideal scenario looking at the 4-hour. But let's now look at the most important chart of all, which is going to be the daily. This has by far the most eyeballs. So naturally, since this stock has been on such an upside tear as of late, the bulls are loving this, right? The 50-day moving average, that white line, and the 200-day moving average, they're going to take their time to move back upside. Now, Ideally, from a bullish perspective, I'd want to see that white line, the 50-day, get above $150 a share, like as soon as possible. But I'm understanding that that is going to take some time. Why do I want to see that? I just want to see an additional safety net add to that hugely psychological safety net of $150 a share. I think that'll be really important to help strengthen that level in case we end up seeing that again, in case we end up needing it. Ideally, if you are a bull, ideally you wouldn't want to end up needing that, and we would just end up bouncing up out of this hole, getting up above 175, allowing the earnings to blow over. That would be your ideal scenario. But I also understand, because we have to remove the emotion from this and understand the psychology of both sides, both bullish and bearish, regardless of what our personal bias might be, to truly be the best traders and investors that we can be. So, considering that, I understand that if we don't reclaim 170, 175, and we continue to the downside here, a lot of bears are psychologically going to be looking down toward that 150 area, and I just want to be aware of that. Now, for those of you who are not only watching the stock, this is just as important if you're only holding shares, but especially trading options. Implied volatility here has tanked off. Again, we talked about this heading into earnings. This was not unexpected, tanking from about 60% to about 45%. So if you were holding purchased options, you likely noticed a little bit of IV crush, even if you were green on the position. The culprit, and you may not have known what was going on, the culprit here is, of course, implied volatility falling. That does impact the value of both calls and puts, by the way, through the Greek Vega. So incredibly important to consider that. As that comes down, the naturally, right, the risk as you get lower and lower in that this shorter term, like 5-month range, we get lower and lower compared to the equilibrium, which is obviously good if you're looking to buy options then at that point. Let's finish up here by taking a look at the options chain and seeing what the traders are thinking heading into tomorrow. This is where we can get some really good data. So looking here, great sample size, first of all, 1.5 million total contracts traded here today. That is plenty to get some good sample size data here and important data. 850,000 approximately calls, 653,000 puts. That's 56.5% calls, remainder being puts. So that overall call put ratio is leaning to the bullish side. But if we look short-term speculation here, this gives us the most immediate short-term data of what are the traders betting on in the very short term, the out-of-the-money, gambly style, speculative contracts, right? That 0 to 20 delta. 368,000 calls, 242,500 puts approximately. So not only is the overall call put ratio leaning to the bullish side, but we are also seeing that short-term bias also leaning to the bullish side. But again, hey, as always, the masses can be incorrect. Before you head out here, leave a like on the video if you wouldn't mind. Helps out tremendously with the YouTube algorithm. You have no idea. And I'll see you in the next one.